This is me, Resident 1, and I'm bringing you my episode 3 of season 2 Walking Dead review. And I just like to start by saying, this is how I think Crawford would have been. That's what I like about season 2, episode 3. I like how it shows us what I think Crawford would have been had it not been taken over by walkers. I mean, come on. This seems like what this William Carver Overson. That's who Carver I think would have been, and it really was nice because Kenny already doesn't like authority. Kenny just is not good with authority, so you already know that Kenny's going to cause some type of ruckus here. I mean, you get to the base, and the first thing Kenny tells Clementine, look for a way out, even though Bonnie clearly warns them, like, do not look for a way out because they can tell when you've been messing with, like, the perimeter, I guess. I think she says something like that. And I did like how it showed why the group was running, and then because the whole time you're figuring out why are these people running from William Carver, and then you kind of figured out during this whole scene, and it really episode, and it really makes sense because Carver's running this whole base draconian way, and like I said before, this is what Crawford would have been like, and that's what I think what Crawford would have been like based on Molly and their descriptions. Other than allowing kids, of course, but still, I like how they did this because we didn't get this in the last episode, even though we expected to get something like this when we invaded Crawford. We expected to be like, guards and stuff, but there was walkers. So this place is basically walker free. And it's like, you don't have to fear the walkers. You fear the people kind of, or you don't trust the people because of what, especially Carver, because of how crazy or how draconian this whole lifestyle is. Basically, it's Carver's way, or not even no way. This is technically worse than Crawford because Crawford at least let them go. They even sent the parents away with the kids. But this place just says, no, you die. You don't get to leave this camp. You just die if you don't fit in, which I'll get to a little later. I really did like the whole this whole scene when they got into episode 3 was a lot better in my opinion than the other episodes. You get an introduction. You kind of get how this place is like. Reggie, who I'm going to just say it, Reggie is my Doug, okay? Reggie is my Doug because he takes things light. He kind of just not jokes around, but he it's never really too serious with him until finally it gets serious. And that's how it was with Doug. Doug is like a guy who kept things light, but when it got serious, he was all like, oh no, and that's how Reggie was when things got serious. So I really did like that. In fact, I liked the characters in general that were introduced in episode 3. I really did like Jane, especially because she was pretty good character. Like, she wasn't, I'm not gonna say she was too complex because you kind of got her you never exactly, she wasn't too much of a complex character, but she was a good character. But at the same time, they really, I think, with episode 3 failed on the whole 400 days thing because I did like the cameos. I like seeing Shell and Rebecca. I liked seeing Russell, Wyatt, and Vince. But come on. They didn't make much of a difference. They were just there. They talked. In fact, Russell and Wyatt talked to Clementine directly, which was actually kind of cool. But at the same time, I was like, okay, so, all right, well, that made a difference. But that's it. Bonnie automatically had to come here anyway, so in everyone's game, Bonnie's going to be here. That's why Bonnie has such a big part. So I'm not saying that I wanted the 400 Days people to have a much bigger role because it wouldn't have made too much sense because it would have been too hard for Telltale with only, what if someone left 3 people behind and 2 people came here? I know it would have just been a little hard for Telltale, but at the same time, I was thinking maybe a little bit more than just these little cameos. But moving on, like how Reggie and Bonnie are both like brainwashed initially when you come here. Not fully brainwashed, but they're more like, even though you can tell Carver's is like a bad dude, they're all like, oh no, he's just, you want to get used to him. That really did show how some of the people had, oh my gosh, is that Lee? Oh no, it's just some other guy. Actually, when I first saw Mike in this episode, I actually thought, wow, that looks like Lee, but it's not. Mike kind of looks like maybe a younger version of Lee, but I was just like ready to see Lee. It was kind of funny. But anyway, moving on again. This episode was really good. This episode also, to me, was very short. I don't even mean, even in time span, but the whole episode takes place in this basically this store. And it really didn't do much in sense of like, you know, even though this episode, as I said before, was like, it was where I really started to like this season 2, this episode was rather short. I actually completed it, I think it was my second time playing. I completed it in 1 hour and 45 minutes. Now that's short for an episode. And it's the reason it is short is because I think they just wanted to have the whole Carver thing happen. And there's not too much happening. I mean, you go through you're trying to do work here, which didn't make sense either. The work here did not make sense because they had Clementine keep switching jobs. I know it was for the plot, but come on, Telltale. It doesn't make sense that they're going to send this little girl to fill ammo AK-47 rounds. Then, before she's even done filling like one round, send her to pick berries with Sarah. Then send her to bring nails. And then all of a sudden, Carver wants to see her in his office. It just happened a little too fast, too quickly. It was like, what? I mean, the episode, like I said, I finished in 1 hour and 45 minutes the second time around, so they could have added a little bit more in there. It just didn't make sense. They kept having this girl go from job to job to job. I mean, this is a community. You're not going to have someone keep jumping jobs. They're not going to finish anything if they just keep jumping jobs. Now, I also liked in this episode how Clem got a jacket because, honestly, in Walking Dead Season 1, these people changed outfits. I didn't see them do that once in this whole game. So when she got that jacket, I was like, finally, like a different thing. It just didn't make sense. I mean, in Walking Dead Season 1, they were good at the whole changing outfits, at least during episodes. But in this one, it's like everybody's wearing the same outfit for the whole time. Not making too much sense there. But in this episode also, they kind of got Clem's voice wrong.
Sounds like you really respect him.
I mean, I don't know. Did anybody else know that? When she said that to me, I was like, when I was watching it again, I was like, wait a minute. That's not Clem's voice. I'm not sure whether the actor just went because the actor is an adult. So maybe she went too deep there or something. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that got. But that just didn't sound like Clem to me. Anyway, that's a pet peeve for this episode. But one bad thing that was really in this episode was Nick and Alvin. See, Nick and Alvin can die in episode 2, but they can make it to episode 3. But if they make it to episode 3, Telltale does not do, in my opinion, a good enough job to make it feel like that was a difference. Nick barely says anything, and Alvin is away from the group during almost the whole episode. He's there at the beginning. William Carver calls him to his office, and then you see him later on, and he has like one thing, and that's basically it. I mean, let's go back to season 1 with Ben. Ben, when you let him live in episode 4, in episode 5, Ben is actually a part of that episode. Ben has lines. Ben mouths off at Kenny. Ben has this whole other death scene. I mean, even though these other people do have other death scenes, except I'm not even sure if you count that as Nick, because Nick dies before off screen technically, and then you find his zombie later, or Walker. But still, it felt like a little bit lazy writing to me. Not exactly lazy, but at the same time, it was like, we're gonna let these characters live possibly to episode 3, but we're not gonna have them do much because we don't want it to change too much of the story. I mean, Ben really did change episode 5's story quite a bit if you let him live. If he's not. There were 2 different versions of the story basically. Because if you don't let him live, then Kenny's arguing with Omid and Krista. But if you let him live, he's basically arguing with Ben, and then Ben mouths off to him, and you find out about Ben's family and everything. And I'm just saying, they didn't do, in my opinion, a good job with Nick and Alvin in episode 3. Also, we're back on the whole, is Clementine a little girl? She's an 11-year-old girl. Carver's bringing her into his office to talk about, like, saying, we're the same. You're like me, and I'm like, okay, no. If this was a grown person, maybe, but 11-year-old girl, anyway. Still, though, even though you didn't get to know Reggie very long, you gotta admit, you probably were impacted by his death scene.
Are you okay?
I gave you plenty of chances.
Please, Bill! No! 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 Please! Ah!
Other than Sarah's father, that's the only death scene from a group member in this whole episode, because technically Sarita doesn't die until episode 4, no matter what choice you make. But still, this episode we did really well showing Carver's craziness when he beats Kenny, when he kills Reggie, because beating Kenny to me that was way too obvious, like that was gonna happen. Because I mean, you break rules with this guy and you get caught, you know that the consequences are gonna be severe. But with Reggie, it was like, what? I mean, he didn't exactly show the girls how to cut a leaf right, and Bill throws him off the roof. It just didn't make sense to me. It was kind of overdoing it, but at the same time, you needed that to happen to figure out how crazy Bill Carver was. But actually, you pretty much knew that from the beginning. These all events were just to make things more tense, and also to convince things like Molly. And if you notice, even Troy at that scene that you just saw seems a little bit disturbed at how much times Bill punches Kenny. So it even shows that some of his guards were a little bit disturbed at his actions, which is kind of good. But let's go to the ending. I love how Clem gets the hatchet, the same hatchet that Lee had during Crawford. It kind of connects this more to Crawford than, like I already said, this is what I think Crawford would have been. And Clem's using the same hatchet at the end, so it's pretty nice. And it's cool that hatchet would have passed down, because remember, we saw that hatchet in 400 days. So obviously, they must have brought it from Gil's pit stop when they came. And they must have, and somehow Luke got it. Let's not worry too much about the details. There's one thing about this whole leaving scene that doesn't make sense to me. They have cars. In fact, they have trucks. Big trucks that can hold all of them. The people are on the roof shooting AK-47s at the walkers. Why are these people trying to walk through the herd? Why don't they steal a car? Why don't they drive out of there? I'm just saying, everyone's distracted. Why do they have to walk through the herd? Or better yet, why don't they just go on the other side of the store where the herd may not be and walk that way? This whole scene, to me, in fact, let's freeze it right there. That's a truck behind them. That was a truck behind them, and they didn't use it to get out. I mean, just put everybody in the truck, drive off. Why are you trying to walk through a herd other than to create that plot necessary pandemonium? Come on, Telltale, you're better than this. You can't put a truck right next to us or right next to the player and not expect. I mean, I could get if they didn't think about taking a truck and they thought about just walking through the herd. But what I don't get is when they see this big old truck next to them, they don't take the big old truck and drive off. Do you see how big those trucks are? I don't care if that's a herd out there. Drive through them. Drive to the next side. Drive somewhere. Just got worse and worse with this whole escape attempt. It just got way too, like, this escape attempt was needed because they needed to kill Carlos's dad. They needed Sarita to get bitten. So we're going back to the whole Telltale just write stuff in because they need it for the plot. I mean, just move the truck. Someone had to put that truck there. So even if just to make it make more sense, move the truck. Just erase it. I was like, wow, that's a truck. It just got anyway. Let's go back. Story wise, I think this episode was great. Gameplay wise, better than the other two before it. But when it comes to plot holes, this episode definitely had some plot holes. Some stuff was like, why are we doing this? Why is this happening? Other than just to advance the plot. All the way to the end where it was, why didn't they take the truck that was right outside instead of walking? Who knows what would happen if that had happened. But anyway, I still enjoyed this episode. I really did like this episode more than the ones before it. I've got to admit, it was a lot better. And it really set the pace for episode 4 and 5, which actually got better as they went along. So that was really good. And this whole episode really was pretty good in general. If you ignore kind of the plot holes, you don't get too technical, you kind of forget the fact that certain things weren't needed and certain things were only to advance the plot itself, then this episode's pretty good, pretty decent. It ended on a high note. It really did. That whole cutting off Sarita's arm or killing the walker, that was a very good way to end an episode, which has been lacking lately. As I said, episode 1 had a very bad ending in my opinion, and this one really just took the cake. This was one of the probably the best best solo ending in this game. One of them at least. Anyway, that's my opinion on episode 3. Tell me yours. My review, it was much better than the ones before it. Alright, then at least episode 1 and episode 2 of season 2. Alright, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and God bless you all.